All right, everyone. Welcome to this full moon Sidereal astrology forecast. This is for June 27th and 28th of 2018. All right, so full moon in Sidereal Sagittarius. If you were expecting me to say Capricorn, be sure to check out that link down below. We are using the actual size of the constellations called True Sidereal Astrology. So yeah, if you were to look up at the actual sky, you will see the full moon in Sagittarius. So now a great time of cultivating these energies. Essentially, it is about our perspective on things, right? How do we view things? How do we view our overall life? And what inspires us? How can we access a bit of this freedom, inspiration to cultivate these things that really give us that energy of life, that adventurousness, and motivation to cultivate these higher ideals? So great to do a status check with this. The full moon will be conjunct Saturn, so there is this serious energy about it. This year, it's been important to be patient with these matters, to practice self-discipline and really see the long-term perspective. So that's definitely coming in. We also have a trine to Uranus, so maybe making some changes with this full moon, and a square up to Chiron, so maybe facing some wounds and doing some healing in the process. All right, so let's look at all of this here in more detail when we return. All right, so here is the chart for the full moon. It will be right in between Wednesday and Thursday, depending on where you are in the world. But the time will be at 00:57 on the 28th Eastern time of the Americas. So you can make that adjustment depending on where you are in the world. But for the most part, all of us will be experiencing the energy both days here. All right, so Sagittarius, it is the time now to do a status check with these energies, with these qualities of ourself, of life. And essentially Sagittarius, looking at it from the constellation, is the centaur. In fact, the centaur with a bow and arrow. So this is very symbolic for the mutable energy of Sag, which is the combination of both half horse, half animal, the bottom half, and then top half human, top half spiritual being. So it's this combination of the two that, if you look at the centaur, it's aiming the bow with that sense of purpose, right? And that's the top half, the spiritual half. So the sign is about cultivating our purpose, and specifically how we view it, our perspective of it, right? And so as we cultivate this energy, the bottom half, the instincts, naturally kick in. Those energies of inspiration, adventurousness, right? Sagittarius is all about cultivating that adventurous spirit, that willingness to try new things, to expand our horizons, and listening to those instincts and inspirations. So great time to do the status check now with these larger perspectives, particularly what we're focused on. What are we aiming for, right? What are our inspirations? What are the things we want to cultivate that are our highest ideals? And in that way, fire sign Sagittarius, cultivating the drive, the ambition, the energy behind it to follow through with it. So great time to do a status check with this. Some really good questions to ask are, how do you view your overall life perspective on things? What is inspiring you, maybe since this year with Saturn coming into Sag recently, but just in general, what inspires you in life that you can now do a status check with? And this is what the full moon does. Helps bring this stuff to awareness, helps us do a status check with these inspirations, with our belief systems, with our perspective on things, and then how to culminate some of this stuff. And this is essentially a shift now for the next 6 months, based on whatever insight we'll be gaining this week, will likely help pivot our life into a direction for the next 6 months to cultivate some of these higher ideals and to cultivate these qualities of Sagittarius, this adventurousness, this inspiration, when we do have that sense of open-mindedness, purpose, belief, right? That drives us, that motivates us. So very fiery, very inspiring, However, with all that being said, the full moon is in a very, very close conjunction with Saturn. Saturn is the more densification energy. In fact, it's the polar of Sagittarius. All right, if you look at it by planets and signs, Saturn is the polar to Jupiter, who rules Sagittarius. So Saturn densifying this whole thing. Saturn has been shifting into Sagittarius, let's say, this year. So has there been anything this year in particular that has been requiring more of a patient approach to these inspirations or opportunities or things you're open-minded about? And so Saturn is helping us cultivate this patience, helping us cultivate this self-discipline, this one step at a time attitude and perspective as well, being in Sag, to help ground these perspectives. Because wherever Saturn goes, Saturn, so to speak, shows us that, in this case, this fire energy can be cultivated for the long term, can be cultivated in a grounded way so it manifests into physical reality, which is what Saturn represents, the physical form. And so the inspiration turning into physical matter, but it does take the work, takes the self-discipline, takes the working within our own limitations and our life limitations to make that happen. And this is an energy we will be cultivating over the coming couple years. But now with this full moon, doing the status check with these qualities as well, or with these things, these structures, these foundations that we have been building regarding these things that maybe are inspiring us. So of course I will put down below which house this will be, this full moon, for you personally. Do check it for your sun sign, moon sign as well, and your ascendant sign. If you know your time of birth, there is a birth chart calculator there. And this will give you a more specific look at which area is now going through the status check and likely pivoting for the next 6 months. Okay, so conjunction, very important with Saturn, but the full moon will also be trining up to Uranus. Uranus is slowly making his way into Aries this part of the year. He's not going to quite get into that constellation. He's about to go retrograde. Most of that will be next year. I will make a video on this quite soon, actually, about Uranus and Aries. But in either case, this trine to Uranus is supporting us right now in making changes, specifically with more of this fire energy of Aries, of maybe taking action and initiative, right? The changes that require action and initiative and maybe require confidence and courage and assertiveness and willfulness, right? Aries qualities. So it's in a supportive trine. I think anything that helps us really see things in a new perspective, anything that is about sort of disrupting our view of things, right? Uranus is all about seeing things in a completely new light. And in Sagittarius, it's maybe seeing some of these potentials in a completely new light and sort of disrupting our belief systems, trying new things, mixing things up, accessing a bit of that freedom of spontaneity, right? Innovation, progressiveness, uniqueness, again, new perspectives, really, really supportive with this. So listening to that higher self, listening to that sense of freedom, and that willingness to make changes, really supportive with this full moon. Now, on a more minor note, the comet Chiron is in a square to the full moon, so there could be some healing with some of this. And this is the challenging side to it. The Saturn is more inherently neutral. This square might be a little more on the challenging side. And since it's involving a comet, it's more about us doing the transformative inner work, the subjective work. And in this sense, if there's any wounds that do arise, or inhibitions, or doubts, or uncertainties here in Pisces, that has to do with some of these potentials, or again, your perspective of what's possible in life, Chiron in a square is all about taking that action and doing those things in the face of the wounds. And as we do that, it becomes very healing and very rejuvenating. And this becomes in a very supportive element. As we face those wounds, then we heal. We see that this really is a subjective perspective, that we're not actually wounded in the area. Chiron is not the objective view of the area, it's the subjective, the internal wounds. And as we face them, we see it's not so bad, that the physical reality is actually fine, or that we're actually really good with that area or doing that thing or whatever it is. So good to go into the wounds head on, take action in the face of them, and as a result, the healing likely coming through with this. Okay, so that's the full moon in a nutshell. We could look at the dispositor. Jupiter, who rules Sagittarius, is retrograde. He's about to go direct here in a couple weeks, but he's in Libra. So maybe a sort of, backdrop to all of this perspective likely has to do with bringing balance into our life. So some other good ways of thinking about this energy right now is, are there some things that you can bring back into balance in your life? Is there anything out of balance you can bring back into balance? And this could also have to do with relationships, as is often the case with Libra. So maybe reflecting on those, bringing balance in our one-to-one connections, all right, the give and take, cooperation, harmony, this type of stuff. Really good qualities to still be reconsidering with Jupiter retrograde. But like I said, he is slowing down. He's about to go direct, and then we'll be moving a lot of this stuff forward come the middle part of July onward. All right. So that's the full moon in a nutshell. Essentially, great time to do a status check with our perspective, particularly in the context of the patient, discipline, long-term perspective of that with Saturn. All right. Maybe making some changes, seeing things in a new light. Disrupting our perspective with the trine to Uranus could be very supportive. Listening to that freedom, both Uranus and Sagittarius are about the freedom and inspiration and higher ideals. So lots of support with that. And the square to Chiron does suggest maybe some healing, taking place in this whole matter, and maybe some actions we can take in the face of those wounds to heal. All right. Now, of course, the full moon opposite the sun. I think another good point about this is that with this status check, with these qualities coming in of Sagittarius, also grounding it in practicality. All right. The sun in Gemini has been showing us the importance of really seeing how things can be applied in a tangible way. That inspiration and higher perspective and hopes and ideals are great. They inspire us. They're the motivation. It's the life force. But at the same time, there is the practical matter, the practical reality of things. And that's where Gemini helps ground us. So balancing the possible with the practical, I think, is also great with this full moon. All right. So a fantastic full moon, everyone. Thank you again for watching and all of your support with the channel. And I will see you all on Thursday for the weekend forecast. Take care.